Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jax Miller. Let me just say just a moment at the beginning to say thank you to all of you who reached out during my recent illness. Really did appreciate it, and it meant a whole lot. So I've been watching with great interest everything that has been unfolding with the situation with MP George Wright. Seems that there are whole heap of issues being conflated and confused in some cases, that in some cases there either seems to be ignorance of the law or an ignoring of the law, along with calls for legislation which of dubious relevance to the current situation. But all of those issues we'll be unpacking during the program. Let's go first to this overview by Kalisha Williams.
At a time when a slew of gender-based killings dominated the news, this video surfaced on April 11. Soon after, it had everyone talking because the man featured in the video was said to be a member of parliament, specifically MP for Central Westmoreland George Wright, though the man in the video could not be positively identified. The police later said Mr. Wright and the woman in the video, Tanisha Singh, filed separate reports about the incident. Amidst the allegations, though, pressure on the Andrew Holness administration to act. First, calls for Mr. Wright's resignation.
When I saw the video, it was so traumatizing that I could not watch it to the end. The brutal beating which this man administered on a female was alarming.
Then for him to be suspended from the House of Representatives.
I rise to give notice of motion to suspend a member of this honorable House.
Hold a minute. To do what?
To suspend a member of this honorable House.
I would like us to understand that I cannot allow it at this time because the laws and the standing orders do not permit.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness later directed Mr. Wright to withdraw from the government parliamentary caucus, supposedly making him an independent member of parliament. But still, there was disquiet.
Most importantly, remains a member of the Jamaica Labour Party. You cannot be a member of the Jamaica Labour Party having been nominated by them, run on their platform, and because you withdraw from their caucus, you become an independent. That is not so. You only become an independent if the JLP then expels you from the party and you remain in the parliament.
In another turn of events, on Friday, the police said they had dropped the case because neither Ms. Singh nor Mr. Wright wished to take the matter any further. The police also said the quality of the video was too poor to make any real impact on the investigation. So, what happens next? With the absence of constitutional penalties, Human Rights Group made these recommendations. 1. For the reintroduction of the 2011 impeachment bill to remove government officials who abuse their authority. 2. Amend the definition of impeachable offenses to include acts such as assault. Currently, there is no mechanism to remove a sitting MP from office. The Central Westmoreland MP is now on leave of absence from Parliament. The JLP also said Mr. Wright would be relieved of all parliamentary-related duties. As for whether changes would be made to the law, this is what Prime Minister Andrew Holness had to say on Tuesday.
It is an internal conversation. I'm certain that from my statement here, others will join the conversation. But it is something that the government is examining to see whether or not that could fit within our legal framework, our jurisprudence. Other countries that have a similar jurisprudence have provisions that allow domestic violence and abuse cases to be pursued even without the victim's own statement and participation. It's something that we will have to look at.
The House of Representatives later tabled the motion, again moved by the opposition, to have Mr. Wright suspended from the House. Kalisha Williams for All Angles.
Thanks as always, Kalisha. So just for clarity, the Constitution does provide for the seat of a member of parliament to be vacated in a number of circumstances, including criminal conviction and a sentence of 6 months or more. We'll be talking about that as well. But the impeachment issue is what we currently do not have legislation on the books for. And the calls that have been made as to what should be included in an impeachment bill, again, we'll be getting to that. Now, just look at some of what has been happening. The Speaker has said that Mr. Wright is proceeding on leave of absence from the Parliament. He'll no longer, we hear, be sitting in the Jamaican government, the JLP government caucus, and will not be under control of the government whip. He's on leave from the JLP. He's been relieved of all party-related duties, and the JLP's Operations Council, we've heard, is considering his membership. So let me just introduce my guest for the program. We have with us the Attorney General and MP for West Central St. James, Marlene Malahoo Fort. We have with us Attorney at Law Gavin Goff, also Jeanette Calder, the Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal. We invited the People's National Party to send a representative, they who are trying to move this motion in the Parliament. We didn't get a representative from them, which is a pity because that motion itself needs to be discussed and needs to be unpacked. But nonetheless, we continue. Let me just start off. Can I thank you all so much for talking to us? We really appreciate you joining us. I just want to start off with sharing with viewers a little bit of a statement that has been sent out by Mr. Wright's attorney, Mr. Foote, who we also invited to be on the program, but he didn't agree either. So his statement says that there's been widespread condemnation of Mr. Wright without lawful cause. He refers to the Constitution, which says that everyone who is charged with a criminal offense is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But he says the treatment of Mr. Wright seems to run afoul of these sacrosanct precepts. And he says there exists at this time no legal or evidential basis to condemn a man viewed as innocent through the constitutional lens. He says in relation to the public pronouncement of the police that the investigation has come to an end because of lack of evidence, no statement, poor quality of video footage. He says, quote, the multitude of public statements implicating Mr. Wright are, in my view, defamatory. The police have indicated there exists no written statement or witnesses in the matter. Then he quotes a number of cases about people don't have any obligation to give statements. And then he ends by saying individuals that publicly commented on the matter implicating Mr. Wright prior to the police concluding their investigations and the court ruling on same would have done so in the wrong order by putting the cart before the horse. And then he quotes the P.J. Patterson case against Nationwide where $12 million was awarded in damages, and ends by saying a word to the wise is sufficient. So Mr. Wright's attorney seems to be threatening defamation suits in relation to anybody who continues to speak about this matter. Okay, let me bring in our guests. Thank you all so much, as I said, for joining us. We appreciate it. Gavin Goff, let me start with you first. Your reaction to this statement from Mr. Foote, Mr. Wright's attorney?
Good evening, dear, and good evening to the viewers. I found it quite bold. I think I was quite taken aback that he had come out quite so strongly. Defamation usually is what happens after you have denied the truth of the allegations made against you. In the circumstances where there has yet to be a denial, I was a little surprised to see talk of defamation suits, but who knows?
Well, given the fact, though, that in a defamation case, it's the defendant who has to prove the truth of the statements being made, would Mr. Foote, though, be saying, so for instance, if we're having this discussion about Mr. Wright and the video, and he decides to sue, well, the video doesn't, we can't say it's Mr. Wright on the video. There are no police statements to point to, so could he actually have a point there?
Well, no, because before you even get to the defense proving truth, you have to have the claimant asserting as true the fact that he was not the person in that video. So there must first be a statement which may be required to be made under oath and on penalty of perjury, that you are not the person in the video. And in a defamation suit, the defendants would also have the right to have witnesses called, even subpoenaed, to give statements as to who in fact is in that video. So it's unusual, as I say, for somebody to be taking such a strong position unless they are in a position to affirmatively say that this statement is not true, or certainly not true about me.
All right, so you think he's blowing hot air here?
Sorry, could you repeat?
You think he's blowing hot air?
I'm not hearing.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me go to the AG. Madam AG, your reaction to this statement, given that the JLP has taken all these actions in relation to Mr. Wright? I don't know, they might be suing you too, I don't know. Not hearing the AG. Perhaps you're muted, Madam AG. I think you're muted. Okay. While we wait for her to unmute, let me ask Jeanette Calder for her reaction.
Well, I'm not an attorney, Dion, so I'm really glad that you led with Gavin. And by the way, it's really good to have you back.
Thank you.
But while I listened to you read out the release from his attorney, which I was just hearing for the first time, I heard you mention sacrosanct precepts. And I think one of the precepts that should be sacrosanct is the respect and the regard that you should have as a member of parliament for the position and the place that you hold in the House. I say that also because I heard you talk about the protection that he ought to have under the law and the Constitution. And I would imagine that one of those things is to first protect himself and the House, the people of Jamaica, the constituency he represents, probably the church he goes to, his family, the country. And I find that I've had anybody who's a Jamaican, much more a member of parliament, to be accused of these kinds of allegations and not simply put himself in a position where he can protect himself, where he regards these sacrosanct precepts of respect for the House and simply not say to Jamaica, it is not me. And for release to come out from the party to indicate that even when he met with the elders of the party, the leaders of the party and the country, that they had an extended discussion with him and they were not in a position to say to the country that Mr. Wright has even responded to the questions about the video, then I actually think that to then turn around and say to the country, I deserve protection and there's some sacrosanct precepts you have forgotten. I really turned that back around to Mr. Wright and said, at a minimum, what you could do for the country is to say, I didn't do it. I think that's where we need to start.
All right, I'm just about at the break, so let me go to the break and then we come back and we pick up with our guests. Remember, you can tweet along with us. Our hashtag is TVJ. All angles soon come.